We've all been there. That first week back after a long break. Routines feel off, and just thinking about school can feel, well, heavy. If that sounds familiar, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful tool called the re-entry system that can help you get back on track in just 3 days.
Okay, let's start with the single most important idea for this whole lesson. We often think of getting back into it as a mood, right? Like some spark of motivation we just have to wait for, hope it'll show up. But what if that's totally wrong? What if re-entry isn't a feeling at all, but a system you can actually build? That is the core idea we're going to explore.
So what does that actually mean? Well, have a look at this definition. Re-entry is about being intentional. It's the act of returning to your school systems on purpose instead of just crossing your fingers and hoping you'll magically snap back into the groove. It's all about taking control, not waiting for it. So go ahead and take a moment to think about that. What does re-entry mean to you personally? It's a really good idea to jot down your own definition right now. It helps make the concept stick. So how do we actually build this system? We're going to use a simple but really effective framework called the 3-day reset. And as you can see, the steps are super straightforward. Day 1 is all about inventory, Day 2 is stabilize, and Day 3 is commit. We're going to walk through each one together. Let's just quickly break down what each of these days means. On Day 1, you take inventory. And that just means looking at the reality of your situation without, and this is key, without panicking. On Day 2, you stabilize. You're taking care of your basic needs so your brain can actually work. And then on Day 3, you commit to a small, repeatable system to start building that momentum back up. Now's a great time to jot down a quick description for each of those days. All right, let's dive into Day 1, inventory. We all know that feeling of dread when we open our laptops for the first time after a break. The goal here is to face that reality, to see everything clearly, but without letting the panic take over. So what does inventory actually look like? Well, it's about making a list of the concrete things you need to address. Any missing assignments, upcoming tests, what your schedule looks like for the week, or even just taking a calm look at your grades. The whole point is to get everything out of your head and onto paper, where you can actually see it. Now, you might be thinking, wouldn't making a giant list of all my problems just make me more stressed? And that is a totally fair question. But here's the surprising truth. Uncertainty is what really drains our mental energy. When you don't know the full scope of what you're facing, your brain just stays on high alert. Taking inventory makes the invisible visible, and that clarity, it's incredibly calming. So this is a great time to apply this. Think about 2 things you could take inventory of right now and why that would actually help reduce your stress. Feel free to pause and write them down. Now for Day 2, stabilize. I want you to think of your brain like a high-performance computer. You wouldn't expect it to run complex software if it wasn't plugged in or if the battery was at 2%, right? Well, the same thing goes for your brain. Before you can tackle difficult schoolwork, you have to pay your operating costs. So what are these operating costs? They're the fundamentals. Getting enough sleep, good food and water, some kind of physical movement, and even just having a clean workspace. So take a look at this list and just think, which 2 of these are most out of balance for you right now? This brings up a key question. Why focus on these basics before just trying harder? The answer is really simple. You can't force focus. Effort just collapses when your brain is running on empty. It's kind of like trying to drive a car with no gas in the tank. It doesn't matter how hard you push the pedal, it's not going anywhere. Stabilizing first is what gives you the fuel to move forward. Let's just take a moment to reflect on that. What's one small thing you can do to stabilize one of your operating costs today? Just identifying it is the first step. And that brings us to Day 3, commit. This is where we put it all together and build a system that actually lasts. The secret here isn't some massive, heroic effort. No, it's to think small and aim for what's called a minimum effective system. So what exactly is a minimum effective system? Well, it's the smallest possible action that still creates real progress. And here's the most important part. It's a system that works even when you're tired and have zero motivation. That is the real test. So why is starting small so effective, especially after a break? It really all comes down to momentum. Trying to do everything at once creates this huge pressure, and that pressure often leads to shutting down completely. But small, easy wins, they build momentum, and that momentum is what carries you forward almost effortlessly. So take a second to think about that. What could a minimum effective system look like for you? I mean, maybe it's just opening your textbook for 5 minutes, that's it. How could building that kind of tiny momentum help you get back on track? Okay, we've covered the theory. Now for the fun part. Let's make this real. It is time to build your own personal 3-day reentry plan. This is where the concept really becomes an action. As you can see, the goal is to choose one concrete action for each day. What's one thing you will inventory? What's one way you will stabilize? And what is your minimum commitment? The key here is to be brutally realistic. This plan has to work on your worst day, not just your best one.
This is where the magic happens. Go ahead and take some time to really think this through and create your 3-day plan. And remember, be specific and most importantly, be realistic.
Okay, let's do a quick reality check. Just look at these two styles on the screen. Do you tend to be reactive? Pretending everything is fine until it suddenly becomes a crisis? Or are you proactive, using small steps to build momentum? Be honest with yourself about where you are right now, and then think about where you'd like to be.
Let's bring this all home with one final, powerful question. Forget the 3-day plan for just a second. What is one small thing you can do in the next 24 hours that would make your week feel just a little more under control? This is how it starts, with that one small action.
Let's take one final moment to put this all together. Think about that one small action and really commit to doing it. That right there is your first step toward building a new system.
So let's recap. The biggest takeaway today is that getting back on track isn't about waiting for motivation. It's about building a system. By using the 3-day reset, inventory, stabilize, and commit, you've created a small, repeatable plan to regain control. Now finish the Lesson 10.1 page in your workbook. When you're ready, we'll explore how to plan your entire week with something called the Weekly Map System.